Yeah. Get off my lawn. Get off my lawn. I can do this. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
All different times. Where have you been? You know, I eat so much.
Easier that way. I will. Go and get my up in. What's up?
They're aware of so at this point, it would just go to the UA as all out there, it's costly.
I think that's really what's the issue. My mom here, specifically that was not involved. I know it's you just walk into the left. That's something that just happened next time. Put the shots get involved.
So stuff will have that here in the UA. And then after that, there comes pilot and then that'll
Update next week. And they made one like
It's never a good time.
I was just trying to figure out what the status of Christmas Eve. No, the last people who talked to me about that was
Not getting your chair.
they live right behind me. I think they came in this wrong, and I don't know if they were going to.
Should specify.
Miss Patrick, I'm sorry. Patrick.
we drove out there.
What? Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to ask me about that. Well, what happened is, used to have a handle on it, and then one day, like, sometimes I set things on top of my car, you know, and I left it there when I was pulling out the driveway, and it fell off. Now it's got a hole where the handle's broken. No. I think it looks like it's surprised and has like a big lower lip. Got it.
Shot at you.
I was drinking and became angry at the boat. Not a blessing.
Grabbed it 2 times a day.
Good morning to everyone. We will call our meeting to order. It is 9 a.m. And this is December 27th. This is a special call meeting of the Scott County Fiscal Court. And I would like to ask you all to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start the agenda, we'd like to ask you all to join me in a moment of silence in respect of Mayor Jenkins passing of his wife, Trina. still wanted to do this and share that her visitation will be on Monday the 30th, 11 to 1, and funeral at 1 o'clock there at First United Methodist Church. Just thoughts and prayers with Mayor Jenkins and his family, and a very difficult time for them. So if you join me in a moment of silence, I appreciate that very, very much.
Thank you very much. With that said, then, I'd ask Ms. Hamilton to call the roll.
Mr. Hostetler?
Present.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Wallace?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Present.
Mr. Ellison?
Here.
Mr. Pratt?
Here.
Mr. Livingston?
Here.
Mr. Gordon?
Here.
Judge Covington?
Present. With that said, we have a quorum and we can conduct business, and we will move forward here with consideration of the minutes from our previous meeting. They were shared by email. Are there any questions or comments related to those minutes as presented? Motion from Kelly Corman, second from Rick Hostetler. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Transfers. We have one correction on the transfers. The third down really should read account number 5015103, which is Deputy Sheriff's payroll, correct, Stacy? And for the SROs. So that is a correction, and just noting that. Are there any other questions related to the transfers as presented? Motion from David Livingston. Second from Rick Hostetler. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Then number 6, bills and hand checks as presented. Any questions or comments? Motion from Rick Hostetler. Second from David Livingston. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. That will lead us down to number 7, ordinance 2411, second reading, cannabis business zoning. I will share with you all that the lottery was conducted by the state of Kentucky for the dispensaries for our area, and there was one awarded for Scott County. It was awarded to a LLC called Thrive Blue. I've attempted to identify them and try to reach out to them, just to be honest with you, to let them know that we were considering this ordinance and let them know about the specifics of it. And I've even reached out to the Office of Medical Cannabis and requested their contact information. I've gotten a couple of emails back. I have not been able to do that as of yet, but my intent is to try to share this with Thrive Blue LLC, so they're aware of this ordinance and try to be on the front end of that. With that said, I will ask Cam to read the summary, and then if there's any questions or comments prior to that consideration, we'll go from there. Thank you.
All right, Scott County Fiscal Court Ordinance Number 24-11, an ordinance amending Article 2 of the Georgetown Scott County Zoning Ordinance regarding medical or medicinal cannabis business operations. Summary. 1. Establishes definitions for medicinal cannabis business, medicinal cannabis cardholder, medicinal cannabis cultivator, medicinal cannabis dispensary, medicinal cannabis processor, medicinal cannabis producer, medicinal cannabis product, and medicinal cannabis safety compliance facility. 2. Establishes medicinal cannabis regulations for the purpose of developing local standards for the placement and development of medicinal cannabis land uses, minimizing potential adverse impacts, providing a consistent and predictable path for development, establishing siting standards, and preserving the essential character of adjacent areas. 3. Establishes general development standards applicable to all medicinal cannabis businesses. 4. Establishes a use review table. 5. Establishes specific development standards for cultivators, producers, safety compliance facilities, and dispensaries. 6, contains severability provisions, provides for repeal of inconsistent laws, and takes effect upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination at the office of the Scott Fiscal Court Clerk, 101 East Main Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324. Introduced and publicly read for the first time December 13, 2024. Publicly read for the second time December 27, 2024.
Any questions or comments?
No, just that I'm very disappointed in the lottery system that going out of state. Sorry, I'm very disappointed with the lottery system with many of them going out of state, many of the licenses. I think it's ridiculous that this is a program in the state of Kentucky, yet the Commonwealth awarded many of those to corporations out of state.
And David, I've read many comments similar to that as well.
I have the contact information for this. He's out of Pennsylvania. We'll have the one here. It's going to be located out by Applebee, or across from Planet Fitness in that area. I forget the name of that road. That goes back to Cherry Blossom.
So you've been in contact with Thrive Blue?
I have a copy of an open records request from their application, so I've not been in contact. I just have all their stuff from it. So it's a guy in Pennsylvania. It's going to be on, is it Blossom Park? Is that the name of that road?
Blossom Park.
Blossom Park
Drive.
is.
It's going to be on Blossom Park Drive.
Red, how are you?
I'm very well. I hope everybody's holiday and break was well. And just to address Mr. Pratt's point and some of the other comments, of course, these uses are conditional in all zones. Before this client or applicant can begin any operation, they need to seek advisement and approval from us. At this time, we have not. Mr. Pratt, if you don't mind, our office may reach out to you to establish further contact if possible. Judge Covington, if you have anything else to share with us or need from us, just please.
And that's why I reached out to the Office of Medicinal the state office to try to get contact, and I just simply asked for, hey, could you give me their contact information off the application? And they did not share that. They shared that the director wanted to speak with me. So
I've done the same. I got the contact page, the general form, got a reply back, please email this person.
Yeah.
As of now, hadn't received a response, but appreciate the information on the
request from the beginning, because that always seems to work really well, and it makes everybody happy.
And I was just trying to be a good, just take the route that direction. But Ryan, if you could maybe share that with us, that would be great. And then we'll try to be on the front end.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, as a community, we want everybody to be successful, but it's hard to be successful if you don't know the rules, and we don't want to be behind the process. And
Right.
we want to bring them into the community as smoothly as possible. So,
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you. So we've had a reading. Any other questions or comments? And would there be a motion? Motion? Second. David with a motion. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. That will move us down to ordinance 2412, second reading, zone change, Industry Road. We will read the information, and then if there's any questions or comments, we'll go from there.
All right. Scott County Fiscal Court Ordinance number 2412, an ordinance related to changing the zone for 5.000 acres, more or less, owned by 2 Alpha LLC. Said property situated on Industry Road, parcel number 18530009002, from A1 agricultural to I1 light industrial. Whereas the application of 2 Alpha LLC having been filed with the Georgetown Scott County Planning Commission requesting a zoning classification change, A1 agricultural to I1 light industrial, for 5.00 acres more or less situated at parcel number 18530009002 on Industry Road in Scott County, Kentucky. And whereas the matter having been heard publicly by the Planning Commission on October 10th, 2024, pursuant to notice according to law and with the quorum of the Commission present and voting. And whereas after taking testimony on the application and fully considering same, the Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of the rezoning request. And whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court, after fully considering the application, record, and recommendation of the Planning Commission, hereby accepts the Planning Commission's recommendation and grants the requested zoning classification change for the subject property from A1 agricultural to I1 light industrial. Now therefore be it ordained by the Scott County Fiscal Court, Section 1, Georgetown Scott County zoning ordinance be amended to show change in the zoning classification for 5.00 acres more or less, parcel number 18530009002 on Industry Road in Scott County, Kentucky, as described in the application for the property of 2 Alpha LLC from A1 agricultural to I1 light industrial, all in accordance with the application for same. Said property being the same property conveyed to 2 Alpha LLC, a Kentucky limited liability company, from Lois Ann Brueck and Joe Calvin Brueck Jr., aka Joe C. Brueck Jr., by and through his attorney in fact, Lois Ann Brueck, husband and wife, by deed of conveyance made and entered into the 26th day of April 2013, and of record at deed book 351, page 385, Scott County Clerk's Office. Section 2, that the Georgetown Scott County Planning Commission is hereby directed to show the zoning classification change on the official zone map and to refer to the number of this ordinance. The first reading was approved December 13th, 2024, and the second reading is today, December 27th, 2024.
Questions or comments related to this second reading? Motion from Kelly Corman, second from Rick Hostetler. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all. We'll advertise that in the paper and go from there. Thank you all. Now, Jelly Broyles, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Judge. I'm doing fine, thank you.
Chip helped share the link to the overall SOPs, and
Yes,
then
sir.
we've shared the limited edits, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so with the edits, the changes, the additions this year were a little bit lengthy because we added in the net device policy. We had some pretty substantial changes to the transport policy in regards to us taking over those transports for the SO this summer, the COTA transports. Other things were just minor changes, really, that we had to make down there. And so, do I have any questions on them?
And Jailer, I thought it was minor and procedural in nature, and but appreciate the detail and any other questions related to the proposed changes in the SOPs.
I was curious, who all comes together on that? How do you, I know you don't have to surely do this all by yourself.
Well, honestly, most of it is me, but I confer, I get input from the supervisors and from the command staff at the jail. And then once it's written, I go ahead and bounce it off of them. I go ahead and write it. I draft the proposed changes, whether it's deletions, additions, or completely new policies. And then I bounce it off of the command staff. And then once we kind of hash it out, we bounce it off the floor supervisors to make sure that we haven't missed anything or we're not creating a conflict with another policy that we have.
Just out of curiosity, really, do you have to do this totally, like, do we do this on our own, or do you kind of like consult or get feedback from other jailers, or I'm just curious?
Occasionally I'll get feedback from other jailers, Cam, but honestly, I feel like our SOPs, if you were to compare them to other jail SOPs, ours are pretty squared away. And
yeah, I wasn't implying they're not. I just
I know.
Curious if you.
Yeah, certainly
how
if it
that works.
Yeah, I don't have any problem conferring with other jailers or DOC how they do things. Certainly, if it's something new that we have not done before, I would do that and see how they have it.
So the net device protocol is now in place, and hopefully that will, if the opportunity presents itself where an individual needs that, possibly it's in place, and that's included in this as well.
Yes, so. Yeah, we're actually rolling with that. We have not had anybody that qualified yet to where we could even approach them about it. But it's there, and it's waiting and ready. That's exactly right. It's a tool in the toolbox. I will let you know that regarding the change in the ICE detainer policy. We've already used that.
And the other thing in regards to that, which is very positive, I think, is we need to try to circle back and reach out to the individual that we discussed. I can't remember her name, Jennifer Vaughn, I think, just to tie that all together.
So I've already spoken to her, and she's asked for a copy of the policy, which I'm going to forward to her as, whenever it gets approved. And she said she's ready to remove us from that listing.
Thank you.
Absolutely, yes. You're right. Yes.
That's good news, Joe Broles.
How is the transport going? You know, is that working for both groups?
As far as us and the SO?
Yes.
Oh, I think it's working great for the SO. They're glad to be kind of relieved of that task.
Right.
And it's working well for us. I can say that, you know, we got a van from the SO to help with those transports. The van, I'm not sure how old it is, but it's probably 10 years old. In next year's budget, we're probably going to have to look at some type of additional transportation. But
Are you going to go from 10 years to like 8?
Depends on the condition of the vehicle. We'll see. We'll get what we can out of the vehicles. But I'm not, as you well know, I'm not for getting a new vehicle, brand new vehicle for that. So anyway, but that'll probably have to be part of the budget that we look at a replacement transport vehicle. But it's going well from our end, and I think from the SO, I think they would say that
Your manpower is not being struggling to.
No, we're able to work it into our schedule, which works really good for us. Part of the problem with the SO doing it before is they were bringing them when it was convenient for them. And one of the times they would bring them is on a Friday night. And Friday nights we're just really busy. We've got individuals that have been given weekend commitments. So we've got those individuals we're trying to get into the facility. We've got regular bookings, busy on a Friday night, and they would bring those in. And that's nothing on the SO. I don't blame them, but it was just a very difficult time for us to accommodate booking in those quotas. So it works very well for us as far as being able to work it into our schedule when it works to transport them as well as get them booked in and everything.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Good.
So it seems to be working very well.
Good.
Any other questions or comments? And would there be David Livingston?
Just one tiny thing on here is under the searches page. It's on page 1, down at the bottom, page 46, searches transgender ad.
Yes, sir.
It just says his genitalia, and I don't know if it should say his, her, or if you should just strike that entirely because it's not inclusive.
Yeah, I will fix that.
I mean,
I'll tell you.
I'm just saying that could cause a problem down the road. I mean, you know what I mean. It's
Absolutely. It's an easy fix,
right.
and what I usually do is use the more general pronoun of their, they, their, and so that's what I should have done here, and I didn't. So thanks for the catch, and I'll get that fixed.
So would that be a motion as amended?
Yep.
Motion. Second, Dwayne Ellison. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge.
Happy New Year to you. Number 10 on our agenda, Resolution 2428, RV Campgrounds Zoning Moratorium. If you would read it, and then we'll offer opportunity for any comment.
All right, Scott County Fiscal Court Resolution 2428. A resolution related to the creation of a moratorium on the Georgetown-Scott County Planning Commission's acceptance and review of applications for the establishment of RV campgrounds. Whereas the Georgetown-Scott County zoning ordinance has no provision for the appropriate regulation of RV campgrounds other than regulations generally applicable to the various agricultural zones. And whereas pursuant to the terms of an agreed judgment in civil action number 24 CI 855, notwithstanding that the parties dispute the appropriateness and sufficiency of the procedures surrounding their adoption, for purposes of resolving the case, the parties agreed that the following ordinances are void. Scott County Fiscal Court Ordinance number 2310 pertaining to RV campgrounds, which was adopted on October 26, 2023, and Scott County Fiscal Court Ordinance number 24-06 pertaining to RV campgrounds, which was adopted on September 13, 2024. Accordingly, neither Scott County Fiscal Court Ordinance number 2310 nor 2406 can be relied upon in considering any zone change applications. And whereas pursuant to KRS 67.083, Section 3, the fiscal court shall have the power to carry out governmental functions necessary for the operation of the county, including by enacting ordinances and issuing regulations in the performance of the following public functions. H, conservation, preservation, and enhancement of natural resources, including soils, water, air, vegetation, and wildlife. And K, planning, zoning, and subdivision control according to the provisions of KRS Chapter 100. And whereas inquiries have been made and a previous application was filed for the development of an RV campground, which was later withdrawn. From recent experience, the regulation of RV campgrounds is complex, divisive, and difficult. To equip local government to fairly review the need for regulation in this area, it is necessary to establish a reasonable period in which the Georgetown-Scott County Planning Commission may study the pertinent issues and recommend regulations, if appropriate, for adoption by the Scott County Fiscal Court. And whereas, in order to research the issues, conduct a public hearing, and draft proposed regulations, a minimum period of 6 months is necessary before the consideration of applications for the establishment of RV campgrounds. Now therefore be it resolved by the Scott County Fiscal Court as follows. 1, that there is established a 6-month moratorium on the Georgetown-Scott County Planning Commission's receipt and review of applications for the establishment of RV campgrounds in Scott County, Kentucky. During this moratorium, the Georgetown-Scott County Planning Commission shall A, not accept for review any application for the establishment of an RV campground as defined below. B, research the land use regulation issues related to the affected business uses. C, conduct a public hearing on the land use regulation issues related to the affected business uses. D, draft all appropriate regulations necessary for the protection of the citizens of Scott County and the prospective operators of RV campgrounds, including focusing on conservation, preservation, and enhancement of natural resources, including soils, water, air, vegetation, and wildlife. E, recommend appropriate regulations, if any, for adoption by the Scott County Fiscal Court. 2, that moratorium as used herein is defined as temporary prohibition on an otherwise regulated activity for the legitimate public purpose of preserving the status quo while the governing authority studies the applicable issues and devises a permanent ordinance which addresses those issues for the protection of the general public and the prospective operators of the regulated activities. 3, that RV campgrounds, also mobile home camp, also trailer camp, and overnight camping area, as used herein, is defined as an area designed exclusively for the accommodation of overnight and other temporary lodging where the traveler or transient usually provides his own accommodations in a travel trailer, van, camper, or other mobile vehicle, etc. This definition does not include camping areas designed exclusively for tent or other primitive camping. And 4, that public hearing as used herein is defined as proceedings required pursuant to KRS Chapter 100 and 424 prior to the enactment of the zoning ordinance. Approved this 27th day of December 2024.
Questions or comments?
Judge, I got a few questions, probably maybe appropriate for Holden. So with the moratorium, there is a 6-month, it's kind of what a timeline and what we're going to not allow any applications. What is the plan going forward with planning and zoning to get an ordinance in front of planning and zoning as well as from the Scott County Fiscal Court? Is there going to be a comprehensive group or a committee put together? Is this something that's going to be done completely by planning and zoning staff and then reviewed by planning and zoning commission? Because we've gone down this path before, and it's taken a lot longer than 6 months. And then what came out of the Planning and Zoning Commission changed when it got to the Scott County Fiscal Court. So is there a plan that we could all possibly be on a comprehensive committee to work forward? And what was your thoughts on that?
So just briefly, I do believe the resolution talks about the general idea. We're going to study the matter. We're going to try to come up with something. Now, luckily, as you alluded to, a lot of work has already gone into this process in the past. This is really an opportunity to just take another look at it, slow things down, and make sure that we're, everything's squared away moving forward. Now, there has been some conversation about putting together a committee to kind of begin to study this problem and make a recommendation. I think that would be beneficial. However, what the makeup of that committee would look like or could look like has not been discussed in great detail. However, if this board believes that it would be beneficial to have a representative or 2 or 3 from the group, I would not say 4. I think that'd be very beneficial to the task at hand. At the next Planning Commission meeting, our plan as staff is to brief the Planning Commission on the action taken here today to make sure again that we're aligning efforts and we'll move forward together. I think that's going to be beneficial.
I mean, Judge, I think it's beneficial if we have some, this is where we got sideways the last time.
I've talked to Holden, and it would be wise to have a couple magistrates, members of the fiscal court, 2 or 3, to sit in on a committee and start the process and lay it out. I think that would be the best route.
And it may be appropriate also, I know Rick has specifically referenced city of Sadieville and around the interstate exchange up on I-75 North, that maybe someone from the city of Sadieville has representation on this committee as well, because it could be that it affects them.
Well, would those other legislative bodies have to adopt this resolution also, since it is the Georgetown Scott County Planning and Zoning Commission? Because they have to follow those rules also.
Yeah, I think we've kind of got to do something because of this, agreed judgment in the case that voided the prior ordinance. I don't know that the city will have to. I probably need to have the conversation with Emily on that. I don't know about Sadieville, and I don't know. But I think we got to do something because right now we got nothing. We've got a void ordinance by that.
So with the judgment, agreed judgment, we thought this was the logical thing to push pause and then take input, have a public hearing, allow the planning commission to have input, and then you have a document that has input, that has some good research put behind it again, and then then we can move forward. But what would be ideal is having a document that is sent to us that's in one piece. It'd be nice to have one document with not multiple pieces, and have it all in one place.
To a couple of Chad's points, it does say a minimum period, so it can go longer than the 6 months, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I assume. I think what we'd have to do if we wanted to extend it is do another resolution to extend it at that time. I think
if somebody wants to extend this to 9 months, we can amend it to 9 months if that's what y'all want. But 6 months was just thrown out there.
A couple of examples that I saw had, precedent-wise, had 6-month moratorium.
Well, I was just saying, you've got a minimum.
So, yeah, you could
so
later
we've got
extend
that
it.
time frame. We can address it later or address it now, whatever the court wants to do. Another comment, and I think this might apply also to Stamping Ground, but I might be wrong. I know Sadieville already has, I'm pretty sure, representation on the commission.
And Stamping Ground does as well.
I think so too, right?
No, David Vest is.
So, so there's part of that coverage you're talking about, which is good, and their input will be there through the commission. Sadieville will be represented, and so will Scott County, or Stamping Ground, sorry. And of course, Georgetown's got, they've got representation on the commission. So anyhow, that kind of covers a little bit of what Dr. Wallace is talking about. So
the only thing I might add too is that Charlie Perkins, who represents the commission, has been in on these discussions, and I think is on board with what we're doing here too.
Yeah. No, he supports it.
Yeah.
If this only stops new, are there any current applications?
We have no current applications.
The other thing I'd ask, Judge, is y'all. It's not any surprise that my constituents are very passionate about this RV park, and maybe we could get some people from. And I'm not saying it has to be from my district, but we get citizens involved, and maybe that's what I'm looking for. Maybe that input's going to be at the public hearing that you're proposing to review the ordinance or maybe it's on the committee, to be involved with creating this ordinance. I just want to make sure that when it goes to planning and zoning and it comes here, we're all on the same page. That's the main objective.
And, in regards to, recent committee that we put together, the Ag Land Stakeholders Group, it's all essentially citizens, and I don't see anything wrong there's nothing wrong with getting input, and it's very desirable. But you can't have too many on it.
I agree.
But Holden's done a great job with that. He's hit the ground running, and I trust Holden to navigate the start of this ship. So, any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, how are you? Thanks. Dick Murphy, and we know each other through our joint recent history. But I just want to say thank you very much for proposing this moratorium. I think pushing pause is very prudent, and I think that it's very timely, especially given that there's no active RV rezoning. It's the perfect time for this, to jointly develop a better ordinance than what we had prior. I do really like the sentence, from recent experience, the regulation of RV campgrounds is complex, divisive, and difficult. Not particularly prescient, but certainly looking back, we know that to be the case. So as much as I like the moratorium, I do think it's setting a false expectation to think that it can be resolved in 6 months. And I mean, realistically, it took about 1.5 years, really almost 2 years, for the previous one to work through. And there really was no disagreement. I mean, I've watched all of those prior meetings. There really was no disagreement at any point during that. There will be disagreement on this particular attempt. I'm quite sure of that. And the wider you cast the net, which I encourage you to do with regards to involving people, the longer the process is going to take. But I do think that at the end of that, we'll have a really good RV ordinance. So I would encourage you to consider extending that now, so we don't have the wrong expectation out there that somehow magically everybody's going to agree in 6 months. It's just not going to happen. If I had a vote, I'd say at least 1 year, but you have the votes. So
Dick, I respect what you're saying and understand, and I don't think there's anything wrong with, if the court wants to entertain an extension and amending that from 6 months to 12, if we finish prior,
then you finish, yeah.
But the most important thing is the process, getting feedback, and then not rushing into an artificial deadline that's been set for 6 months or such. Yeah. We could extend it easily but if you want to go ahead and do that now, I think that's and to Cam picked 6 months out because that's what's been used in the past.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
it's a magic number.
It was not a magic number, and it was not. There's not any. We don't have a preset timeline at all. Mm-hmm. But I am very confident that Holden, our new director, will
move it along.
Will move along, but he will make sure it's done right and make sure that we have input from stakeholders, people's voices are heard, and then such. So I saw a hand down here.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. My only problem is this is government.
Yeah.
And if you put a deadline, it's more likely to get done. And if we push that deadline to 9 months or 12 months, it's going to extend out probably to 9 months or 12 months, because when you start involving more people from the public, which I wholeheartedly agree that we have to involve citizens, constituents from outside of elected officials, but when you start involving more people, then when you're trying to get meetings together, yep, and people say, well, we've got 1 year, well, let's push this meeting out 2 weeks. Well, all of a sudden you've probably lost 3 or 4 weeks. You've lost a month. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm just thinking from the private industry aspect, you set that deadline at 6 months and you do it regardless. You get it done, you can get a product together within 2. There's no reason why you can't get an ordinance together in 8 weeks. If you can't, then we got problems of developing language and.
What if we split the difference and went to 9?
Well, I still
A little baby.
the longer you push the deadline out,
I know,
the longer it's
and
going to take.
and I-
agree with Dave. I agree. I think 6 months is plenty of time, and I just think citizens get frustrated when we sit up here and say, well, let's do a year, let's do a year and a half, let's do, I mean, it sounds like a stall tactic. I think we got problems too if we can't get it done in 6 months.
And if we get 5 months into it, we can always say,
Sure,
hey, we're
it
going to
says
take
minimum.
another 3 months.
That's right. But I agree with you that when that 6 months or whatever it's on paper, that's what it turns into.
Yeah.
But I want to, like, the most important thing is having a quality product at the end that has had input from stakeholders and it's, but David and Kelly, I don't disagree with you, but also from the practical side of the timing of what Mr. Murphy's sharing, yes.
That's why I
It was-
highlighted, it says minimum.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
And you're right.
I mean, that's why I highlighted that, because it does set, it will set an expectation that something's gonna happen in 6 months, but we've defined that it's a minimum.
So if we make a pledge that.
And if
that
5 months out, or somebody's already said that, we go, whoa, we gotta have some more time. We should be attentive to that. Just because of what you guys said, because in the private sector, if you don't set that in my world, nobody's gonna meet it in 6 months. Dwayne's nodding his head. When that substantial completion date keeps getting pushed off, guess what happens? Anyhow, I'm not saying that's gonna happen here, because I think the team's already thinking down the road, but I like it to where, and I agree, it's probably gonna take us longer, but should it? We should really get rolling. And so, but then we take a look at it in 5 months and go, hey, well, the staff says we need a little more time. We'll address it then. We should be attentive to that as well, though.
Well, I'd just like to say, well-written. I like the moratorium, even if it sticks at 6 months, with the understanding that I don't think it's practical, but to meet that deadline. But well-written, and thank you very much.
We'll do our very best to try to move forward, but knowing that if it looks like we need a little bit more time, that we will extend it, and to make sure that the product is appropriate and best.
If citizens are part of any committee that comes up, I'd like to hold up my hand and say I'd be willing.
Would you give him your contact information? With that said,
Mr. Hillmeyer.
yes, sir.
And just one comment, 2 comments actually. The ordeal previously started back on July of 2022. That's when, I don't know if it was Joe Pat or whoever, sent it to Matt Summers to look at on the Planning Commission. So that's a 2-year, 6-month ordeal, if you want to use that terminology.
With no deadline.
With no deadlines. But it kept going on and on and on for that long a period of time. So when Cam wrote it up, I assume Cam did, I just wondered what the workload is on these folks here to handle this in a 6-month period of time, because I've been down there before with Elise, and I know how much the Planning Commission has to do. So that's another expectation on them, obviously, with their current workload they already got. Being through this ordeal for a long period of time, actually, with you all folks, I've learned a lot. And I think it's important when you have the TRC meetings with the folks here, the technical review committees, like you have KU and all those folks in there. There should be some citizens on that TRC that are affected by the ordinances that are going in, which is what Chad was talking about. Because I think if they're involved early, which is what Joe Pat's trying to do here, I think, it would help a whole lot the conversation later on down the road, like we've had in this particular ordeal, is the way I'll say it. And I think the TRC should have some community concerned citizen input, and we can identify easily 2 or 3 folks that could work with those folks to make sure. And there's a lot of really smart people that come out of the woodwork, I think, when you have this kind of thing in Scott County that could really help you all in making these decisions and making them a lot quicker if you had some concerned citizens there. So that's the two things I had.
Thank you. Hey, Rhett.
It's me again. With the understanding that, sometimes government can, move at the speed of smell, and we all acknowledge that. But, just in terms of legal language, I think minimum is a great phrase to use no matter the time period. But I think as we move legal language forward, then you're bound to say 9 months minimum, 1 year maximum. I think as an office, we commit ourselves to doing quality work with the time we're given. And if we know we need more time, we have no concerns with asking you or any other governing body that we need more time. We are committed in all facets of our office to, produce quality products, ordinances, and recommendations. However, we also all like to think in our office we're full gas all the time. We like to have our brains cooking this, that, and the other, but we value and encourage as much input as we can get. But again, we are not afraid to ask for more time if we don't believe our product or ordinance is what's good for the community at whole. So.
Thank you.
I make a motion.
Motion?
Approve the resolution.
So we have a motion. And we have a second. Any other questions or comments? Second was Ryan Pratt. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, and we will move forward, and I think we'll get a good product out of this. Very much so. So thanks for the comments, and thanks for the input, and look forward to doing that. So with this being a special called meeting, our next item is EMS new hires. We do not have new business on here because you can't have new business at a special called meeting. Yes, sir. Mr. Runyon.
Morning, Judge, Magistrates. I'd like to recommend 3 EMTs, Hunter Hill, Madeline Evans, and Junior Morales for full-time employment with our department. All 3 would begin work on January 6th at a rate of $14 an hour.
I see via.
I know your question.
Well, no, I see via the email that they're fully staffed.
Yeah.
Motion approved.
We have a motion, second from Kelly. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? With that said, that will lead us to item 12. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion from Rob, second from Rick Hostetler.
Just draw it.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all. Happy New Year.
Oh, we'll see.
Okay.
We'll make that determination soon.
You want to be on that committee? Yeah,
I think there's I want to be too much. I want to make sure that I have it.
over.